Yo, what's up? My name's RetroPat, and I think all of us have video games that we end up pretty much always going back to. Whether you play them every single day, maybe once a month, every year, or even every 2 to 3 to 5 years, there's certain games that touched us in a way that other games didn't. Certain games that give us an experience that other games cannot. And today, I'm pretty much just going to be casually going through some of my favorite games and games that I run back to every single time, or games that I play every year or so. Most of these games I play at least once a year, but if it's more than that, I'll kind of leave a little notation. Feel free to leave comments on this and leave your own games that you go back to over and over and over again all the time to play every year, because there's just no other game that gives you this experience. This is honestly mostly just a fun video for me and a fun list, but hopefully you guys can get some entertainment out of it. And if you do, make sure to leave a like or dislike on the video. That's okay too. Let's go ahead and jump into our list. Now, a lot of these are going to be series of games as well. So, for example, one of the game franchises that I play pretty much every single year is Portal 1 and Portal 2. I always say that Portal 1 and Portal 2 are incredible masterpiece games that pretty much could be played and recommended to everyone, not even just gamers. If you have someone in your life, I think Portal 2 and 1 could be played by mothers, aunts, uncles, grandfathers, someone who's never touched a video game in their entire life. And I think if you, give them the ropes and kind of walk them through it, Portal 2 and Portal 1 could be incredible games that are enjoyed by every single human on this planet. They are incredible gateway games and incredible introductory video games in themselves, alongside being fantastic masterpieces for people who've been playing games their entire life. There's a reason why Valve kind of only comes out of the woodworks to make games that'll revolutionize a certain genre. The same way Half-Life 2 revolutionized storytelling FPS games, Portal revolutionized storytelling puzzle games, especially 3D puzzle games. With a very simple premise behind it, you essentially just having a portal gun with a blue portal and an orange portal, go through one, go out the other, with a lot of different stacking mechanics intertwined, things like boxes that go through boxes, boxes that stop the lasers, certain little trinkets you'll see as you play the game, buttons here, buttons there, and of course, the giant robot Gladys. I really recommend Portal 1 and 2 to people of all ages and all different varieties. It's just an incredible game for every single human, in my opinion. Next up on my list, there are two games that take this slot, since I pretty much play one of them every single year, and that's going to be Skyrim and or Fallout New Vegas. These are the two best open world RPGs, in my opinion, with tons of freedom and dialogue, and there's just so many quests, so many mechanics that every single time I pretty much always learn something new. Recently I did another playthrough of Fallout New Vegas, this time on the 360. I do different playthroughs on different consoles as well. Obviously, the most optimal way to play Skyrim and Fallout New Vegas, they're very much PC-centric games. You're gonna have the best experience on PC, but you know what? I wanted to kick it back on my couch, relax a little, and play it on 360 and have a little bit of a different experience. And I had no idea there was an underground fighting ring outside of Freeside that involves a quest line of you collecting eggs so you can sleep with the owner of that fight club operation. It's crazy how many hours I've put into this game, and I've never seen that whole quest line and that whole area within the game. There's just always something to learn. There's a reason why good old Todd Howard has released Skyrim on like 20 different platforms at this point, because it keeps selling, because people want to play Skyrim. It's an incredible game, one that no other game really touches this itch. If you want to play Skyrim, you've got to play Skyrim. Some people may swear by things like Oblivion and Morrowind, and more power to you. I have a lot of respect for Morrowind, and I want to put more time into it. Morrowind was actually my first entry into the franchise, and I enjoyed Morrowind, but I do prefer Skyrim. Oblivion was never really for me, and that may cringe a lot of people's ears. I never really got into Oblivion. I want to give it more of a chance at some point. The storyline is interesting to me, but the colorization, the hue, the grayed out hue over the entire game, I've always hated. I hate how non-colorful and how grayed out Oblivion looks. It looks so bleak to me, which may intrigue a lot of people, but I think it's just a lot of washed out colors that it's always been hard for me to get into that. I don't like playing games that don't have that intrigue and mythical world. A lot of people maybe see the world as very mythical because of that, but I was not a fan. But one day I swear I'll give Oblivion a proper shot, but this is about Skyrim. And what can I say about Skyrim that hasn't been said? I'm sure there's tons of 10-hour overviews that I've gone over every little bit in detail of this game, but if you want to play an open world RPG with tons of freedom and dialogue, Skyrim or Fallout New Vegas, those are my two picks. Next up on my list is another section of many different games filling this slot. These are what I would call comfy games that involve resource management, daily grinding, and systematic progression. These games consist of Minecraft, Terraria, and Stardew Valley. I will play at least one of these games, if not all of them, every single year for a couple weeks. Maybe if I'm lucky, play Minecraft for a couple months, and then kind of progress in one world and go on. I want to hopefully stick to one world in all of these games in the future, but Minecraft, Terraria, and Stardew Valley, fantastic fall time games, which is perfect for the time of this video, that just really bring you back to your childhood, bring you certain nostalgia, bring you certain comforts, while also having a lot of fun in the grinding process. These are very grindy games in a lot of ways, and they allow you to sort of immerse yourself in a childlike wonder in a beautiful world. I will often play, you see me here playing Minecraft Alpha. Now, for whatever reason, the trees weren't the correct color. You might have noticed, if you're an alpha, aficionado like myself, you may have noticed the trees and grass aren't the right color in this. I don't know why. I don't know if they updated them to a darker color in 1.2.6. I don't believe they did. Maybe I'm incorrect in my Minecraft history, but unfortunately, anyways, the colors are not quite what they should be, but from this Mojang version. But Minecraft is incredible. I love playing the older versions. I started playing in alpha, like later alpha, back in 2010 or so was my first Minecraft experience. I heard about Minecraft from a friend linking me an IGN.com website review. That's how I heard about Minecraft. I know, very boomer. Oh, I'm 25 years old. So old. I know, cringe. But my point was, I think these are games that people come back to yearly. Minecraft, Terraria, Stardew Valley, how could you go wrong? Terraria is often called the 2D version of Minecraft, and I feel like that's really disrespectful to Terraria. As someone who has also been playing Terraria since day 2 of its release, somewhere in 2011 it was released, and I got it day 2, and back then there was only 3 bosses in the game. It was Eye of Cthulhu, the giant worm, the world eater, and then there was Skeletron, and that was it. And now Terraria is so much more than that, and it's probably better because of that. There's a lot of things for me to learn. Now you can have a cell phone and things of the sorts. I know that I personally, thanks for the gameplay, by the way, Mr. YouTuber. I personally have around, I think, 300 to 500 hours in Terraria on Steam over the years, which is honestly kind of not very much, especially given how much has been added, the hardcore and everything like that. So I'd love to put more hours into it. Just incredible game, very unique. I prefer Minecraft, but I do think Terraria is a totally different game in its own right. It has a lot more RPG elements with the NPCs, the gold, the money aspect, etc., the building, the bosses, the hardcore mode. It has a lot more RPG elements over Minecraft, so there's a lot of benefits to both of them. Next up, we have a game that I feel like is brushed off by way too many gamers as they see it as too comfy or too casual of an experience, but I'm here to tell you, Stardew Valley is a hardcore game. This game has some incredible grind to it, some incredible missions, some incredible resource management and long-term progression. I feel like people can belittle or berate Stardew Valley, but anyone who's playing Stardew Valley, I promise you, is a very talented gamer, okay? This game is not easy. There's a lot of fun to it. The combat challenges in this game, once you get to the second mining area in the desert, that stuff gets legitimately very challenging. Fantastic game, very unique game. I feel like it's probably the best of this. I know it's a hot take or kind of a bold thing to say, probably the best of this genre in terms of things like Harvest Moon, Animal Crossing. I do think Stardew's the best. That's going to be an opinion thing. Obviously, play whatever you enjoy, play whatever is fun for you. I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia for PS1 Animal Crossing, and I think, have fun with that, or I thought it was hard. I'm getting them confused, but play whatever you enjoy, play whatever you have fun with, but I do think Stardew Valley is fantastic, easy to play. It's a modern recreation of all those games that also does a fantastic job at it, and everybody knows it's developed by one guy, Concerned Ape, and he's absolutely killed it. I think he's now like the richest indie developer ever, or like single developer, because of how successful his game has been. Don't sleep on Stardew Valley, don't disrespect it. This is a game for everyone. Play it, have fun, make some crops, battle some slimes, you know the drill. Next up on my list is some sort of Pokemon game, usually PokeMMO at this point. I feel like I do need to play some sort of Pokemon game every single year, and I always say once you play PokeMMO, it's hard to go back to traditional Pokemon games, so I do think that usually this game slot is always filled by PokeMMO. Now, if you don't know what PokeMMO is at this point, it's a Pokemon free-to-play MMO that combines generations 1 through 5 in a seamless world with the ability to just simply right-click and trade players around you, right click and battle players around you. There's an online PvP ranked system, a very difficult and very complex shiny hunting system with the base rate being 1 out of 30,000, which makes it that much more rewarding when you do get a shiny. Now there is stuff that makes things faster to balance around that, don't worry, but PokeMMO is in my opinion the best Pokemon game. Bold take, hot take, I know. I think a lot of people, when you play it, you start to understand why. I can easily say it's the best Pokemon MMO. That's not even close. I think a lot of people agree with that. It's the most popular because of that, but PokeMMO is fantastic. What can I say? I have an entire channel dedicated to it, and I've got to play some sort of Pokemon game, usually PokeMMO, at least once a year. Now, next up on my list is some sort of dungeon crawling game. Usually for me, that's going to be Fate. Now, this could be Fate, this could be Path of Exile, this could be Diablo, this could be Torchlight. There's so many games that fit this genre, but for me, Fate is the most nostalgic, it's the most colorful, it's the most interesting, yet simple, yet fun. This is going to be I think most people, it's probably Diablo 2. You know, most people have a very different answer to this. But in my opinion, I'm a huge Fate fan. But some sort of dungeon crawler, some sort of isometric dungeon crawler has got to be played. The looting, the gold collecting, the gear collecting, the pet collecting, whatever there is in the game, the quests. They're great games. Isometric dungeon crawlers are fantastic. Pretty simple games that could be played by everybody at least once a year for a good little grinding session, a good little point and click mechanical adventure with some abilities thrown in. It's fun, and I make sure to always play, at least one of these every single year. That's pretty much it. Really simple, collect gold, battle through different levels of a dungeon, and turn that gold into more gear, and eventually XP, and that's pretty much it. Very simple games, very fun, a great little grind for a week or so. Now, the next game on my list, I do play every 3 to 5 years. This is not an annual replay for me because this game is not as impactful to me as a lot of these other games are, but it is still impactful, and I do acknowledge the impact that this game's had on the gaming industry. Talking about Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2, I usually play every 3 to 5 years or so, and this game really revolutionized a lot of the storytelling, FPS mechanics, and just general tropes that we have today. Especially, man, Half-Life 2, I think, looks really good to this day from when it was released, which was just unbelievable. I think Valve was so good about making these not realistic, but like semi-realistic, long-lasting stylized graphics. It's kind of unbelievable to me how long this game has been able to been out. I think it released in 2002. This game is extremely old at this point. And it just looks fantastic still. It plays pretty dang well. I think if you go back and play Half-Life 2 with no nostalgia or no understanding of the time frame, I will say I think it ends up being like an okay game, kind of a boring whatever, like boring storyline, whatever. This game was revolutionary at the time, and I do think it's still a solid game if you play it with no nostalgia and no time reference, but if you play it with the time reference, it's just a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. But I do think there was a lot of world building, a lot of really seriousness put into Half-Life 2, and I think anyone who plays this game for 5 or 10 minutes is going to be sucked in, but I do think if you're playing this game once again with no nostalgia, you're going to be sucked out after a couple hours as well. But maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe if you disagree, let me know in the comments, obviously. I think Half-Life 1 and 2 are fantastic games. I haven't played through Half-Life 1, unfortunately. I've been keeping an eye on the Black Mesa sales, which is a graphical remake of Half-Life 1. But I kind of want to play Half-Life 1, the original graphics and the original format first, before I play Black Mesa. So one day, I promise I'll beat Half-Life 1, which hasn't graphically aged nearly as well as Half-Life 2, unfortunately. But honestly, it could be a lot worse. But one day, I'll give them a proper try and give Half-Life 1 and 2 a chronological playthrough in their entirety, and maybe in a day or maybe in a week or so. Half-Life 2 and 1, that's whole series, very classic, very fantastic games. Can't recommend them enough. Everybody recommends them. They're pretty solid. Now, this next game may shock a lot of people, but I play this game like every 1 to 2 years or so, I want to say. This is Mirror's Edge. This was one of the first games that, in my opinion, was really released around movement. This is a parkour game released in around 2008, 2010 era, I believe. And this game did a really good job at the time. Now, I will say, I do think Mirror's Edge is starting to show its age in terms of movement, but it's such a unique game. And one of the first of its kind being that parkour movement-based game. I think if you want to play a game like Mirror's Edge, you pretty much have to play Mirror's Edge. A lot of games now just have this incredible movement baked into their games with their combat systems. I look at things like Rage 2, which I think is a wildly underrated game. Rage 2 might end up being on this list, but it's still too new for me to really know. That game had fantastic combat and fantastic movement. But Mirror's Edge, getting back to Mirror's Edge, really unique game. It did get a sequel in Mirror's Edge Catalyst, but I do think I played a little bit of that game, like 10 hours or so, and I just couldn't get into it. I don't think Mirror's Edge Catalyst doesn't have like the cult following, or it didn't really have the appeal that Mirror's Edge, the original, does. Mirror's Edge is also a very, very cheap game, so if you want to pick it up and try it for the first time, I recommend it. Kind of clunky. Once again, I think it's starting to show its age. Even back then, it was a little clunky, but you get used to it really quickly, I will say. It's not a combat-focused game, which I always thought was really interesting. It's really parkour and movement-based. They do want to encourage you to run away more often than engaging with the enemies. I also do think the storyline of Mirror's Edge is always underrated and pretty interesting. It's really a game about preserving freedom, and there's like corporations that want to like stop the flow of mail and just communication in general. And the job of the main character, Faith, as a runner, is to sort of be able to freely transport information and letters and mail to everyone across the world, which is really cool and interesting. So Mirror's Edge, fantastic game, recommend it, very unique, a cool experience. Next up is my favorite retro game of all time, SSX Tricky. This can share some different categories, like SSX, I have written down SSX Tricky or some sort of other arcade racer, but you know what, for me personally, man, SSX Tricky is #1. You've got to play. I play SSX Tricky every single year. It's the only game I've ever taken speed running in very seriously and had a lot of fun with it, and got kind of decent, not, you know, very good, but decent enough. Incredibly fun game casually, incredibly mechanically intensive game once you get serious and get into either speedrunning or show off. That stuff gets really intense. It's like 5 to 6 minute mechanical snowboarding runs where you have to perform everything perfectly, and if you mess up once, you're wasting that whole run. It's really brutal. Show off and going for like high scores is even more difficult than like speedrunning and going for like time-based stuff. It's crazy. Fantastic game. SSX Tricky is just a game that, you know, man, once you've played Tricky, no other game suffices. No other game has the mechanics, has the feel that SSX Tricky does. If you want to play SSX Tricky, you've got to play SSX Tricky. There's no other game that will ever and has ever met the like feel and mechanics and flow that this game has with its uber trick. Nothing feels as incredible as pulling off, you know, Mac's super uber trick on Garibaldi. This game is just phenomenal, incredible, a great cast of characters. The mechanics, I do think, take some time getting used to the timing of stuff. May take you some relearning once you go back to it, or if you play it for the first time, but give it, you know, you may crash a bunch, you may make some really stupid mistakes. Give it a couple minutes, give it 20 to 30 minutes, you'll catch on really fast, and once you do relearn those mechanics, it is really like riding a bike. Relearning, if you played SSX Tricky as a kid, if you come back to it, you're gonna fall a little bit at first, and, you know, bust your knees up, but give it 30 minutes and you'll relearn very quickly. And once you have properly relearned and gotten those mechanics back, man, it just feels so good and so satisfying. And there's so many great mysterious little things. There's so many like little Easter eggs and tricks and crazy locations that you may have never seen as a kid that you can now discover again as an adult for the first time in SSX Tricky. And it's just truly it's a fun time. It's a fun game. It can be an intense game. It can be a casual game. It can be great. Fantastic co-op game. If you want to sit down and play some couch co-op with friends, family, go for different high scores, race against each other. Fantastic, incredible cooperative game. Can be a little tough if you're much better than the other person, or if the other person is much better than you. But you know what? I think that's okay. I think SSX Tricky is a great game, allowing you to have fun and not really worrying about the competition too much, unless you want to. You know, that may be up to the personal crowd. Next up on my list is going to be Dungeon Defenders, a game that I cover pretty extensively here on this channel, but I think this is absolutely a game worth playing every single year. A 3D action-based tower defense game. If you're familiar with things like Orcs Must Die, Dungeon Defenders, maybe if you like Balloons. I wouldn't really compare Balloons to this, but if you like Balloons, I'm sure you should give Dungeon Defenders a chance. It's a much more interactive game than Balloons. It has a lot more complexity to it. A fantastic game that has aged really well since its release back in 2011. A lot of new heroes and a lot of new mechanics, DLCs, etc. have been added. You can also catch it for a really solid deal. I believe I picked up the game plus all of the DLCs except for the newest one, the Hermit release, for like $10 on Steam during a crazy sale. It's very good. You could have thousands of hours of fun, and Dungeon Defenders can just last you a lifetime of entertainment. It's just a phenomenal game to come back to every single year and do a really solid playthrough of. Dungeon Defenders is also the definition of a phenomenal cooperative game. If you have friends that want to jump into this game, 2 to 4 players, and play through an entire campaign together, progress your characters together, do everything of that sort, it is like probably the perfect game for that. It's truly phenomenal. If you want to play it solo and multi-box and be hyper efficient and do all these different other characters, it's great for that as well. If you want to play solo and just play one character at a time and kind of have fun and relax and learn the game slowly, it's great for that as well. Dungeon Defenders just has so many different play styles that can be perfect for any type of player. It's the best tower defense game that I've ever played personally, with the second best probably being Pokemon Tower Defense, but that's a whole different video. Dungeon Defenders is just a phenomenal game for anyone who's a fan of tower defense genres, anyone who's a fan of this cartoony graphic style as well. I super recommend it. A game truly made for all ages and all types of gamers. Dungeon Defenders is fantastic, and it's a big plus if you do like tower defense games. Action games as well. There are certain classes, if you just want to hack and slash, you can kind of turn Dungeon Defenders into a hack and slash game by playing the Barbarian. Or if you just like strategy, you could turn it into a top-down strategy game by playing the Summoner. The different classes really open up different possibilities for whatever playstyles you may enjoy, which is why I love Dungeon Defenders so much. There's so many levels, campaigns, DLCs, community maps, etc., that really end up leaving this game with infinite content. You can play Dungeon Defenders every day, 16 hours a day, until the day you pass, and you will have a blast the entire time. Next up on my list is some sort of PlayStation 1 platformer, usually consisting of Crash Bandicoot or Spyro. I'm a huge fan of Crash 2 being my favorite Crash Bandicoot game. Crash Bandicoot 2, Spyro, the whole trilogy of Crash as well. Some sort of PS1 early 3D platformer is just a fantastic game to have fun, some nostalgia, great sound design in a lot of these games. Crank your sound up when you play these games. It's a blast. I swear I played through like the entire trilogy, Crash 1, 2, and 3. Mostly 2 and 3. I'd say those games are definitely better in my opinion. Maybe every year, maybe every 2 to 3 years, I probably play through this trilogy. Just a fantastic set of early 3D platformers with that on-the-rails camera that I think works so well for it. Crash 2 and 3, especially like I said, I probably play through every year. And then Crash Bandicoot 1, probably the worst in the trilogy. I know it may hurt for the nostalgia purposes. A lot of great design there, but in terms of balancing and stuff, I would say Crash 1 is my least favorite in the series. Still a great game, probably like a 3 out of 5, and then Crash Bandicoot 2 and 3 being like 5 out of 5s. All incredible games, all fantastic, all tons of fun. And then Spyro. I do think Spyro is worse than Crash. I think Spyro's not aged as well. I think Spyro is a great game to maybe have an adult beverage to and play. I think that Spyro is a lot more boring, unfortunately, as an adult than Crash Bandicoot is. I feel like Crash Bandicoot still has that perfect flow and speed and like enough challenge and everything of the sort, whereas Spyro becomes a lot more of a collectathon open world platformer. And I think that generally, this is my opinion, generally I do think that overarching world, 3D sort of open world, collectathon platformers like that have aged a little poorly, and they're a little boring. They're kind of simple, which isn't a bad thing, but it may not be what you want at all times. So keep that in mind. But I do myself play either Crash Bandicoot or Spyro every single year easily, one of the games to completion. Now on to the very last game on this list that I just added during the making of this video, and I've already talked about Pokemon, but this game is something different. This game is something else. Pokemon Stadium. If you have the urge to play Pokemon Stadium, you've got to play Pokemon Stadium. There's no other game that has the same feeling that Pokemon Stadium has within the Pokemon franchise. I truly feel like Pokemon Stadium is something unique. The announcers, the animations, the effects, everything about it. Pokemon Stadium is such an unbelievably unique game, and you cannot just play Pokemon to get the Pokemon Stadium experience. For this game alone, I want to go ahead and pick up an N64 and a cartridge of the game. I would happily own that console literally just to play this game. It's one of the few consoles, like especially mainstream consoles, that I don't own in physical form at the moment, but I absolutely plan to get one quite soon so I can play this game at least once a year. Pokemon Stadium is something special, something unique, and not something that can be replaced by any other game in my opinion, which is why you've got to play it annually and why it ends up with a spot on this list. All right, but that's going to be it for me. That wraps up my list of games that I play annually, or at least semi-annually. Please let me know your own list down in the comments. I feel like this is a really fun topic to kind of discuss and just hear other people's opinions and different takes on what games they love to go back to and revisit every single year. So make sure to let me know. Make sure to like this video if you did enjoy it. Dislike if not. Subscribe to the channel for daily videos until I hit 1,000 subscribers, and we'll see what happens from there. Have a fantastic day. I'll see you guys later. Play some video games. Play your favorite games. And maybe play a new game today. I'll see you guys later. Peace, Reno.